President Obama is scaling up the number of Syrian refugees allowed into this country next year. Now it's 10,000. Now remember, about 1,500 Syrian refugees have already been admitted to the country since the start of the Syrian conflict back in 2011. Here's the big question, right? Are we inviting another potential attack, a terrorist attack, here at home? Joining us now, Pete Hegseth, concerned vet for American CEO and Fox News contributor, Lisa Daftari, Fox News contributor and Middle East expert. Pete, I'll start with you since you're remote. A lot of people in Europe are saying among these migrants are embedded a lot of ISIS, personnel, a lot of potential terrorists. And we also know, even here at home, we've taken in people from different countries who have some sort of seated resentment that usually evolves either with them or their children later on down the road.
Well, Charles, I'm here in Minneapolis. We've seen that problem with many of the Somali refugees that have been here in Minneapolis and have gone back to fight with ISIS or elsewhere. So there's an inherent threat that comes with it. We know that ISIS has tried to embed military-age males into Europe. We're told there's going to be more stringent requirements for anyone emigrating or receiving refugee status to the United States. 10,000 ultimately is a small number compared to what's happening in Europe. But I would say the fact that we're dealing with the symptom and not the illness, the fact that we're not addressing the lifeblood of this radical terrorism and Islamism in the Middle East is the bigger problem here. And until we do that, we're merely dealing with a symptom of a larger problem that's never going to get better. The best place for these Syrian refugees is, of course, in Syria, which is not a tenable situation right now. And so we're facing a lot of bad options.
It seems like we gave up on the whole idea of Syria. And now, of course, Russia pushing to get into Syria. Also, here's the thing, Lisa. President Obama would argue, well, by turning our backs completely on them, instead of a handful of would-be terrorists, they all would be potential terrorists. They would all have so much hatred and resentment that they would be easy to recruit for these terror groups.
Right, absolutely. And what ends up happening is that a few bad seeds is going to ruin it for everyone. So in that group of all these immigrants, you have Christians, you have well-intentioned people who don't want to leave their country, as Pete said. They'd rather be in the country where they know the language and they know the land. But again, we're not really solving the problem. What are we going to do? Displace all of Syria and all of Iraq? What ended up happening is that we didn't address the problem there. So that problem came to us now. And instead of our president and his cabinet viewing this as a left, right, or an issue that is.
But let me ask you: is it too late to resolve it? In other words, I know we're trying to stop Russia from going in there. I doubt we really will. We've asked some of the neighboring countries to close off their airspace. But I mean, is it too late? I mean, that feels like it's completely broken. Can we go in there and fix Syria?
Well, that's the question. Are we going to surrender once and for all and say that this is an issue that we're going to give Syria to the Russians and to the Iranians? We're going to allow them to prop up Bashar al-Assad. We're going to allow him to be in power, and we're not going to deal with it. We're just going to deal with the fallout. There's no way that we can do this. And whether or not those recruits that went over to fight alongside ISIS come back home with their American passports and launch attacks here at home, or we have these infiltrated individuals that come whether into Europe and to the U.S., we know that they have an agenda to do this. It's not that we want to punish the well-intentioned. It's that we have our national security to worry about.
Some people have made, say, listen, okay, we saw the 3-year-old kid who washed the ashore. But when you look at these migrants, 73% of them are male. Most of them are young, healthy men. And people wonder, why aren't they there? If you want to be in Syria, stand up, fight for your country, fight for yourself. The fact that they're fleeing, but it's all sold to the public as more of a humanitarian thing when only 15% are really children, is a PR campaign that really skews the issue.
Well, I wish they would stand up and fight. The reality is they're fighting such a vicious enemy that very few of them are equipped or capable to confront that enemy sufficiently. And as a result, I mean, these images touched a lot of us. I saw that 3-year-old boy, and of course it affects our heart and soul. You look around the region, though. You showed that graphic earlier. UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, none of them are taking refugees. None of those local countries look at the humanity the way the West does. And I think in many ways there's an ability to exploit the empathy that we have. And where are they going? They're fleeing to the West. They're fleeing to the ability for a better life. Military age male, the fact that it's males, a lot of times they're the ones able enough to make the trip, to send money back home to those who aren't able to make the trip. Right. But you have to be worried about the security ramifications of this. There are a lot of people with good intentions just trying to flee. There are others that will take advantage of this, both in Europe and the United States.
A serious demographic problem and an assimilation problem. Assimilation is the key, and the problem is amongst Islam has had, and we see it here in Minneapolis with the Somali community, some difficulties doing that assimilation, and that's where the problems come.
Yeah, without a doubt, it is amazing in Europe, to your point, on the cusp of giving up all of their heritage over the next couple of decades. It's a complicated thing, and I want to do more on this immigration thing by talking about a very heartbreaking story right out of here, right out of New Jersey. John Oliver is an 89-year-old World War II vet, originally from England. He filed for his really a lot of tedious paperwork. He paid all the required fees that it needed for him to secure a green card for himself. But, well, you can guess what happened. He could not re-enter this country because he had overstayed the last time he was here. He had a 90-day visa back in 2011. He overstayed that visa. Now he can't come. He wants to come right there and visit his son. But the president, in the meantime, does want to offer amnesty. In fact, he's thinking ultimately, listen, let's provide amnesty for 500,000 illegals. So, Lisa, here's the thing. You've got one story of a 91-year-old man who's being told, now you've got to wait 10 years because you overstayed your visa last time. By the way, your wife was in a hospital, and the only reason you overstayed because you wanted to be by her side. Very complicated. I mean, we're going to punish a guy like that. And at the same token, President Obama has passed an executive order to keep hundreds of thousands of illegals here. This is why our immigration problem doesn't seem like it could be fixed.
It incentivizes doing things illegally. I think Marco Rubio really nailed it during the GOP debate when he said, when you look at how generous we are to the illegals, the people who are doing the procedure in a proper and legal way are being really punished. And they're thinking to themselves, well, maybe I should do this illegally. You know, I think what ends up happening is that people will cite history and say, we're a country of immigrants. I'm the daughter of immigrants. I'm a first-generation American, and I really am very cognizant of the real it's just something that I think it's emotional, really, that I was able to have the honor of living here. But we have to acknowledge that it's not politically incorrect to say that our country changed after 9/11. And now we have other issues to worry about. And we're not a country of immigrants anymore because of the problem of assimilation, because of the problem of national security.
But, you know, Pete, though, this is extraordinarily complicated. Today, Donald Trump came out and said it would take about 18 months to 24 months to get rid of all the illegals. You know, a lot of people talk about e-verify and these kind of things. And I think all of that's easier said than done. And of course, the complication of a 91-year-old man being told to wait 10 years because he violated a rule. Do you make an exception for one person? We're letting, you know, President Obama wants hundreds of thousands of illegals to stay. It's a complicated thing.
It is a complicated thing, but it's an absurd example of selective enforcement. You know, we want to talk about a broken immigration system, which is, of course, it is broken. It doesn't work. It's focused in certain areas and not in, say, high-skilled worker areas. But there's really ultimately a problem of enforcement, of a lack of enforcement of laws that are already on the book. And thank goodness we nabbed the 91-year-old World War II veteran who was only here to stay with his family. I mean, we got those resources focused in the right spot. I mean, it is, Charles, a lack of focus on the right priorities of enforcement, in addition to the fact that the system overall doesn't work the way it should.
Between nabbing him and shaking down Granny at the airport, I think we'll all sleep better tonight. Guys, thanks a lot. You were fantastic. Appreciate it.
Thanks.